Hello everybody, this is Stephen Key. I'm the Adjunct Professor of Oboe for Shenandoah Conservatory and also the Principal Oboist for the New Orchestra of Washington in Washington, D.C. I am presenting to you this video today from my private studio in Fairfax, Virginia, and I just wanted to make a video to help you in your process of getting ready for the All-State Virginia audition, which is a big deal. So first of all, congratulations on making it this far. Many of the students who participate in this audition come from very competitive districts, and we only select the top 2 from each district to move on to the states. This is quite a feat for many of you, and so you should be proud of yourself for the work you've done so far. The goal of this video will be to help improve upon the successes that you've already had. The first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about audition prep in general, and then we will get into more details about the preparation of the specific etude that you need to do. So, generally speaking, I bet many of you watching this video have already auditioned for states before, so you're aware of the crazy that's going on when you do this. For those of you who haven't, so there are going to be a lot of oboists, and all of them are going to be really good, and you're all going to be warming up in the same room. So a lot of professional musicians, when we're getting ready to do a major performance or an audition, we go through a process we call visualization. We'll actually close our eyes, center ourselves for a moment, and then just use our imagination and pretend that we're there in the moment. It's actually happening. You're surrounded by 40 other oboists, all playing a million miles an hour, and some flute player doing something crazy over here, and some bassoon player playing multiphonics, because bassoon players are super fun. And it's going to be distracting. So you want to imagine that you're in that process and kind of get that going so it feels comfortable when you actually show up at JMU in a few weeks. Imagine that you just had your number called, your number 27, and they call 25 through 30. That's you. So you're going to grab your papers, your oboe, a reed and a backup reed, and your water, and probably your music. Oh, and a swab. I've had many students go into an audition without their papers and without their swab, and of those many who have done that, most of them have regretted it. And then the next thing we know, the proctor opens the door. Imagine all of this. Maybe get a door that you can walk through. Maybe even set up a sheet so you can pretend that there are people behind there listening to you. Imagine the pencil scratching rapidly on the paper as they're taking notes on your playing. Really go through the process. That can help a ton. A step further beyond visualization is doing a mock audition. I actually do hold mock auditions for my private studio here. If you're interested in participating in something like that with me, by all means, check out my website, stephenkey.oboe.com, or send me an email through my work at skey@su.edu. Mock auditions are fantastic. You really do go through the process with someone sitting behind a screen. You can set this up with a friend or a parent, all of that. I highly recommend recording the process too. And then just do it. Play the audition, have them call out the 2 scales, chromatic scale, have them pull out some sight reading, play your prepared piece, do the whole bit. Go back and listen to it and be critical, you know. This is your chance to build in the best possible audition that you can. Everybody's a little different. I'm a talker, obviously, but I also try to be sensitive to people who might not be. So I've developed a routine when I'm taking auditions of if I have a friend I haven't seen in a while and they're not a talker, I will go up to them and say, "Hi, how's it going?" And they'll be like, "Hey, how are you?" And they obviously are like happy to see me, but like kind of trying to stay focused. I'll usually say something like, "It's great to see you. Do you want to meet after the audition?" Usually they'll say yes. And then we go about our business. Some people are going to feel more chatty and want to chat. And if you're one of the people who likes to chat, just be cognizant of the fact that a lot of people there are nervous and want to be left alone, and you should respect that. Because if you show them fairness, most likely they will show you fairness as well. If you are not a talker, and you do want to have more of a focused situation, then bring a book. Bring headphones, bring some music to listen to, or even better yet, bring a recording of yourself playing the audition music the best you've ever played it, and listen to that over and over and over. Or maybe the recording of this. Warming up in the warm-up room, another big one. This is where a lot of people really blow it. I know I did sometimes when I was your age. We get super excited. A lot of people are just blasting through their prepared piece at like lightning tempos, and like there goes another chromatic scale, and they're like showing off how high they can play and all this. And it is so easy to get seduced into mimicking that. And it is so easy after an hour or more of waiting to completely blow your embouchure and then not be able to play when you go into your audition. Don't be that person, you will regret it. So I want to talk about a few things that also lead to success when we're playing and in our preparation. I would say when we are listening critically to someone else's performance, there are objective realities, things that can either be right or wrong, regardless of anyone's opinion. And then there are also subjective elements of music that are more personal, things that we like or don't like or sort of like based on our personal taste. So let's start with those the objective elements of music. These are the things that you need to focus on completely when you are preparing. These are the things that matter in a blind audition. So there are 5. Note accuracy, rhythm, pitch, articulation, and dynamics. These 5 things are inarguable. You either played the right note or you didn't play the right note. You either played the right rhythm or meter, or you didn't play the right rhythm or meter. You either played in tune or you did not. You either played the right articulation or you didn't. And you either played the right dynamic or you didn't. So subjective elements of music. These are the things that are more personal. These are the icing on the cake. Tone quality, musicality, phrasing, dynamic range, and temporal choices. When we see like a poco rit or a rallentando or a cello rondo, that kind of thing. Those 4 elements are very personal. They're what make the music good. But those are most often not the things you're really going to be graded on. Let's go back to tone, for instance. As an oboist, I am so obsessed with how I sound, and my reed has to be this way, and it has to sound a certain way and all this. But to many non-oboists, as long as you don't sound like a dying cow, then most of us kind of sound the same to them. I know it's extremely frustrating and upsetting how much time we spend on like cultivating our sound and getting those reeds going just so. Most people don't care. And especially if you can't play in tune and aren't playing the right notes and your intonation is terrible, then nobody's going to care if you had a pretty sound on that one note that you did right. So practice with accuracy in mind. Musicality, same idea. There are a few spots in the etude coming up where you get an opportunity to play more lyrically in the quarter note equals 76 section. That's where you want to show off your vibrato. That's where you want to have a nice tapered phrase. But where you're really going to get scored is, did you play the tie long enough? Did I come in too early on the second 16th note after the tie? That kind of stuff. Dynamic range. This is also something that's arguable. As long as you clearly play softer when it's piano or mezzo piano, and clearly play louder when it's forte or mezzo forte or double forte, then you're basically good. Slow practice. I can't argue enough for slow practice, especially in these etudes that they put out. They are intentionally designed to be difficult. When we do slow practice, and I mean really slow, let's say I have 16 notes that are like da 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 dee da da da. I mean, I'm gonna play them like da da dee da la, that kind of slow. And the idea is that you want to build in a sense of total awareness and total sense of control over what's happening in the hand and the way that it interacts with the oboe and the way that the air interacts with the reed, all at that moment of change between one note to the other. When you build that foundation in and then go back and then try to play it a little bit faster, you're just going to be shocked at how good it feels. Plus, it trains you to keep the hand really relaxed. If your hands are tight, you're not going to be able to do it. And obviously, reeds. Reeds are so important. And on this particular etude, it is very difficult. And it goes all around the oboe. I think the highest note's an E. You need to like tongue a low C, and it's not super loud when you do. So you need a reed that can play high notes and jump up there pretty quickly. And you also need a reed that can tongue low notes. And P.S. chromatic scale, you need a reed that can articulate. So get a good one. Talk to your teacher. Most teachers are going to be thrilled that their students got into state auditions and will want them to have a good reed and will likely make one for them or help them in some way. If you don't have a teacher, you can visit my website. I don't sell reeds outside of my private studio, but in the studio resources section, there's a list of various vendors that I work with, and some of them actually sell reeds from professionals, and that might be a good place to go. If you're going to drop some money on a reed, state audition's kind of the time to do that, right? Now we're going to dissect the piece a little bit. This is the first thing I like to do when I have a new piece of music and I have to learn it really fast. So I've written down a few notes here. You will have just seen it also in the this shot just before this video. Definitely rewind back to that, and if that helps to break things down for you, please use it. That's what this video is for. So let's start from the beginning. Key signature. F minor is the key that we're in more or less throughout. That gives us a lot of interesting spots to explore. There's like a D flat moment. It very briefly modulates to C major. We definitely end up back in F minor at the end, but it's good just to have that in mind so that you know what your default position is. You know, knowing if you're going to use D flat and then left D flat, if you're going to use forked F, you're going to use left F. All these are kind of decisions that we have to make. We're going to narrow in a bit. Accidentals. There are a lot. So, you know, go through the piece, scan through it, you know, get an idea of where all the different noodly bits are and where all of the accidentals tend to be. If you notice several clustering up, it might mean that you're in a new key briefly. And actually a really good example of this. In bar 10, we actually briefly moved to C major. If you look at that, everything is natural because of the accidentals. So suddenly it's kind of easy, right? C major. So things like this can help us. Another thing to consider, fingerings. Okay, so I'm going to give you one that I use. Actually, the bar just after that, bar 11, we have to slur up to a high E. This is a tricky note to slur to for a lot of people. For my oboe and my reeds and my embouchure, what I'm doing currently is I finger a full fingered E, so it's kind of like a half whole D, but you lift the F sharp key and then add an E flat and an A flat and use the octave key of some sort. To achieve that slur, I'm playing that with a lifted first finger. On many oboes, this is really sharp. On mine, it is not, so it actually works all right. If it's still flat, you can maybe do it with the third octave key. But that can also make it really sharp. So there are a couple options there for you to pick from. Definitely considering what your other fingerings are. There's actually a couple of spots where you could use the banana key if you're into that sort of thing. If you don't know what a banana key is, by all means, send me a message and ask. I'd love to let you know. Let's see here. Other big ones, right at the beginning, we have D flat, E flat, F, followed by F natural, and then another F. For me, what I'm doing is actually sliding D flat to E flat to left F. For many of you, if that's not comfortable or clean, you might opt to do D flat to left, E flat to forked F, for instance. My forked F on my oboe doesn't sound good, so I usually avoid it unless it's on a really weak beat. And I do use forked F in bar 5, for instance. That's a big one. It's real tricky because it's pretty fast. But notice that it's in the middle of a 16-note passage. So there, for my oboe, I'm okay playing a forked F. At the end of that bar, I use left E flat, forked F, left E flat, D flat, left F, etc. for the D flat arpeggio going down. Time signatures. Okay, so there are a few changes here, right? The big bar that I want you to pay attention to, there was a bit of a discussion about whether this was a mistake or not. So if you notice, bar 22, there's a 3/8, and then above it, it says 8th note equals 16th note. Fine. It says poco rallentando, and then it says 8th note equals 8th note followed by tempo primo. I was convinced at first when I saw this that this was a mistake. But one of my good friends and colleagues, wonderful woman, fantastic oboe teacher, I think she's doing some band directing now as well. Her name is Laurel Seiberts. She actually reached out to the composer of this piece many years ago. And he said that he did intend for that time shift to happen. So really, when you're practicing this, it might be easier to think of that 3/8 bar as actually being a 3/4 bar with 8th note triplets instead of 16th note triplets. Just as a word of advice. And then you also have the poco rallentando along with that. It's clear when we get to the tempo primo that you're back to tempo because it says tempo primo. So one can assume that that's what you do. Let's see here. What else do we have? Tempo changes, right? So that's kind of the same idea. We've got a few. There's a big ritardando, bar 11 into 12, going down to quarter note equals 76. So by the way, kind of sidebar here, this one section of about 6 bars or so is the only slow lyrical section in the whole etude. So I would invite you to take that opportunity to show some lovely vibrato, some shaping, that kind of thing. There are also technical passages that you might want to take a look at. The really tricky one in this is definitely the 5/8 bar. My recommendation when I come across something like this is to do broken rhythms. So, for instance, the 3 final main beats of the 5/8 bar are all triplet 16ths. So I would practice that really slowly with a long first note and then shorter the second 2 notes, connecting them into the next beat. Kind of like this. Right? And then when we go on, we have regular 16th notes. So I would do what I call 1 + 3 + 1. So you play a long first note, 3/16, long next first note, 3/16, kind of like this. Articulations. So you'll notice when you're looking around, there are a lot of tenutos on the second 16th, and also there are accents on some downbeats. I think the intention with those tenutos on the 16th notes, the second 16th notes, is just to make sure that it's clear that you really do articulate that note, and don't get lazy with articulation and just kind of gloss past it. So do make sure you're being clear about that. These are things that will mark you down if you happen to miss an articulation. Fortunately, there's not like fast tonguing in this. Most of it's slurred, but you do want to make sure you really get the tongue out when it intends for you to, and that your accents are different from your unaccented notes, and that your accented notes are also different from your tenutos. Dynamics. Most of this is like a healthy dynamic until we get to that soft section. Then your loudest dynamic is mezzo forte. So just, really relax there. Show how soft you can play without losing control of the instrument, obviously. You want to make sure your reeds are always speaking. And then the last big thing is breaths. Feel free to go back to the video of me playing and steal my breaths, please. I'm happy to help. I hope that you are enjoying this video and able to learn a lot from it.